Gonna share a little
Cool.
deck really quick so that we do not get too confused or anything. Let me see. I think it should be this one. All right. Are we here? Can we see
Yeah,
it?
we got it.
Okay, perfect. And then, yeah, like Lacey said, you guys can please feel free to just drop any questions in the chat. And I built in plenty of time for us to, answer questions because I know for a lot of people, this is just like a whole new world. So that's totally fine. And it's, you will see as we go through it, it's not something to be afraid of, even though I know it can feel a little bit intimidating. But today we are going to talk about getting found and getting chosen and how AI actually decides who gets
Mm.
recommended when your customers ask, even if they're not Googling, even if they're searching on ChatGPT, even if they're searching on Claude, Perplexity, wherever they're searching, and what you can really do about showing up. So
Sam, is this specifically for a service? Are we going to talk about, or are we just talking about getting found in general?
we're going to talk. So there are some, and we're going to talk about this, different nuances to the
Okay,
strategies that we're going to talk about, depending on if you're a local based business, online business, product based business, service based business. There are some nuances there
cool.
that can be a little bit different depending, but it's or the best practices are going to be the same across the board for everybody.
Helpful. Because for me, a couple people that said they found me said that AI recommended my podcast. And I thought that was really interesting too. Because I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes a
Mhm.
big difference if I can get them to my pod. Anyway, okay, thank you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that is true, right? Like, so when you're thinking about your classic funnel and how you're getting people in and things like that, that's what you want to be keeping in mind when you're implementing some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Cool.
So, and one thing is a lot of visibility problems aren't actually visibility problems. They're really positioning problems that are
Mhm.
wearing a technical costume. And so this is where I don't want people to feel really overwhelmed because if you have heard of AI search, if you've heard of GEO, AEO, all the fun acronyms, right? It can be very intimidating. Your eyes glaze over. You're just like, forget it. This is not for me. I don't have a team. I don't have, I'm not super technical. But at its core, a lot of showing up in AI search results is positioning yourself very clearly and specifically. So if an AI tool can't explain what you do in one clear sentence,
Mhm.
best good bet. Neither can your customers, neither can potential buyers. That's not a technical issue. That's a structural foundational issue in your branding, in your positioning, and in your business, right? So unfortunately, it does come back to branding and messaging a lot of the time. So for any of you who are really not about that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you. But the benefit of that is like it's not as technical as you think, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and I just want to pause really quick. Lacey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And Lacey, I just love Lacey, and she has been with me through a lot of changes and ups and downs, both in my business and in my life. So I'm really, really happy I can share this with everybody. And if you don't know me, I'm Sam DiNicola. I help founders rebuild the foundation of their businesses, including their visibility, offers, and operations. So growth stops depending on them showing up every day to hold it all together. So today we're going to focus on that visibility piece as it relates to AI search visibility, because I find that is where a lot of the cracks start to show first. And
Mhm.
any of you who are solopreneurs or have a very small team and you know that you are really busy or you got sick or maybe you have kids and your kids are sick, right? If you do not have a strong foundation for your business and how your visibility shows up, we get into this feast or famine cycle a lot of the time, right? So that's really how I think about visibility and AI search visibility. So I want to ask everybody a quick question. Just think about this. When did you last ask ChatGPT or Claude or any AI who to hire, where you should eat, what you should buy? When did you last ask AI for any sort of answer or recommendation instead of just looking at page one of Google with all of the links? And I'd also caveat that to Lacey, you just mentioned, right? Google is talking back and forth with you now, right? So even for
Exactly.
those of you who are like, I don't use AI to search, I don't do that. You are, because I bet you're using Google. And Google has now completely integrated AI search results into its searches. So it's AI overviews on Google. That's that like little box that appears ahead of both organic search results and paid Google ads.
Yep.
That's really interesting and important for people. And now it actually oftentimes will kick you into that AI chat where it's asking you different questions, right? So that has been a change even just in the last like 6 months or so. That's an added,
Mhm.
it really wants you to do that back and forth, like you said, ask those questions, right? So
It's like
if you didn't think,
it's so like I think that like it seems small, but if you actually stop and think about like how much search has changed in the
you're
last
using
six
it,
months to a year, it's absolutely insane.
yeah, whether you like it or not, you're using
Yep.
it. You're
Yep.
using AI a lot. Any of our tools that we're using in business now, those are bringing in AI features left, right, and center, right?
Yeah,
And
Lindsay
you're
was like
using,
at least two times in the last week. Allison said this morning, like it's like, yeah, mine was probably yesterday. Like, yeah, it's
yeah,
just crazy.
right. Yeah, it's there, right? And so your customers, that is their first stop often now as well. And even if they're just using Google, right? Even if you're like, my customers are old, they're boomers. Okay, they're using Google and they're still seeing that AI search overview. They're still getting popped
Yep.
into that chat, right? So it's not really are they anymore. That's it's just a fact. So, just to give you some ideas on those facts, right? 45% of consumers now use AI to find local businesses. That is up from 6% in 2025. Like, that's an insane behavior change in less than 12 to 18 months. 1.2% of local business locations are recommended by ChatGPT, 11% on Gemini, Perplexity, 7.4%. And, you know, this is still, this is growing every single day, right? Like the stats cannot even keep up with how much this is changing. And so, just to give you an example, in Google's three-pack appearance, which if any of you are familiar with SEO, you'll know what that means. It's but traditional Google results that's showing 35.9% of local businesses. So like if you're a local business, this is like wide open for you. If you're a brick
Yeah.
and mortar, this opportunity is wide open for you. And then this last stat is probably going to be more uh, usable for or relevant to some of my online educators and coaches. 32% of American adults have used an AI chatbot for Lacey yesterday health information in the past year, right? And why that's relevant, even if you're not in the health and wellness industry, is we're seeing similar numbers for coaching, for education, anything that's education based, right? And
Yeah.
that's really where what got me into to really start focusing on AI search visibility is we had clients who were working with us for digital ad management, SEO. I had aligned growth architecture clients like how are we showing up here, or I'm seeing a huge drop off in my website traffic or a drop off in sales if you're an education based business. And a lot of that is because people's first stop is AI now. So
Mhm.
that is gonna, it's not that exact stat across the board, but if you are a coach, education based business, anything like that, this is gonna definitely absolutely impact you. So like this shift to using AI search, it's already happened, but a lot of businesses haven't done a thing about it yet, right?
Mhm.
So your customers aren't Googling you anymore. They are asking AI which business to choose. They are asking AI who can solve their problem. Okay. So I want you to think about it less like showing up in a search result and more like getting recommended. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I always like to tell people is kind of if we think about referrals, right, it's always easier to close a sale on a referral because there's some like built in trust inherently, right? Like they trust the person who referred you. So they've already have a little bit of trust built for you. It's kind of similar with AI in a lot of situations because AI will oftentimes just recommend one, two, or three options. And so you're not going to go. Previously, it would be like you'd get the Google search result, you'd click through a bunch of different links, you'd pop through the website, you'd see like the vibes and what seemed good and all that. But now it's giving you recommendations. So you're inherently trusting those recommendations a bit more. And so you might only be looking at those recommendations when you're doing purchase research, right? When you're deciding if you want to buy from someone or buy something. And so that's really important because if you're not showing up in that recommendation, like you do not exist for them in that moment, which is really important to be aware of, right? And so that's where you're seeing if you've seen a huge drop off in your website traffic in the last 18 months, that's could be a big reason why is because a lot of that traffic is being eaten up by AI search now.
I think the other thing I want to just like add there that I think like it can be hard to like connect the dots on all this, but when you have an online business, like it's so easy to be like, yeah, but that's not how my clients found me anyway. They found me through Instagram, they found me through whatever. Well, Instagram is now connected to the Google Search Console, right? And then also,
Exactly.
if you are an educator, like one of Sam's clients does education for parents, right? And so it's not just about like her website traffic dropping in terms of like actual people searching for like help with that. It's like in terms of people looking for a resource or an answer that now she's not the resource for anymore. So it's like a really big deal. Like it's not just like, oh, all my clients Googled dentist and I don't come up. Like it's so much broader than that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, for anybody thinking about like, okay, well, what about, AI is just scraping the internet. So it's stealing my IP, it's stealing my proprietary information to then just give somebody that answer in the chat and never send them to my website, right? And AI, yeah, it is absolutely scraping the internet, right? It's trying to
Yeah.
find as much about you as possible from your website, from Instagram, from just your entire, what I call digital footprint, right? Anything
Mhm.
that lives on capital I internet, right? But, and this is kind of same thing that we talk about with positioning and everything, right? What makes you, what makes your offers very specific to you, how you bring people through your offers, what that customer experience is like, all of those little intricacies that sit behind your paywall, that's still true for you, right? Like that's not coming up in AI search results. So for anybody who's just like, oh, it's all out there, whatever, what's the point, right? I would challenge that because we've
Yeah.
all heard that advice of just like, don't be afraid to give everything away for free, because the likelihood that everybody's just going to take, 50 hours to watch all of your YouTube videos or to listen to every single one of your podcast episodes and then be able to distill that information and take that in for what's, personally true for them. That's, 1% of 1% of people on the internet are actually going to do that. You still have that special thing that you're giving people, that process that you're bringing customers or clients through. And so I think
Yeah.
just like people used to be afraid, what if I can't just give it all away on the internet, on my podcast, on YouTube? But that's not going to keep people from buying from you. It's just going to build that trust, right? So
Yeah.
just a little reframe there for people. But so I want you to think about showing up in AI search results as kind of two different steps that are happening. Okay. So a lot of us are kind of more familiar with the first step, which is getting found, right? AI has to know your business exists. This is more sitting on the traditional SEO search engine optimization side of things, right? So if we're thinking about AI search versus SEO, think about them as kind of a Venn diagram. So there's some strategies that sit very squarely in the SEO camp. There's some strategies that fit more in the AI search optimization camp. And then there's some strategies that are going to work for both across the board, right? So if you have invested a lot of time or money in the SEO side of things, that's fine, but you very much may not be showing up in AI search results at all. And so I think that's just something to be aware of. I don't want you thinking, oh, I did SEO, so we're good, because that's really not the case. But again, also gives a wide open field for businesses who have never done any SEO. But now you can start showing up in AI search results, right? Which showing up in AI search results is actually a lot less technical than showing up in SEO a lot of the time. So it's kind of a good thing, right? I think it's a
Yeah.
really big opportunity for small businesses and founders. So I don't want you to be intimidated by it. But the second step is getting chosen. Okay. And so that is where AI is deciding if it wants to recommend you, if it wants to give you in those results. And this is the missing piece that a lot of people, a lot of businesses are not addressing with their visibility strategy. And they're really two different things. What AI is looking at to find you versus what AI is looking at when it's deciding if it wants to choose you are
Mhm.
different, because finding is really about you existing on the internet, and getting chosen is about if someone's asking that specific question in the moment, if your business is answering that specific question. And so AI is kind of trying to make a judgment call in that moment to decide if you are the most accurate, relevant answer to the question that they're answering. So I just want to make sure everybody's good on that. Any
Yes,
questions around that?
that makes sense.
Okay.
Yael said she missed you, but I don't think any questions yet. You're good.
Okay, good. So there's really four kind of core things that are going to make up getting into that chosen step, making it to that point, right? So first is a clear, direct answer. Okay. And specific facts, not generalities. All right. So positioning and answer first content are really that are going to apply. Those are the strategies that are going to apply whether you're a local business, online service based business, online product based business. These strategies and this idea of a clear, direct answer and specific facts, specific information, those are going to be the same no matter what type of business you're running. The other two, which are credibility signals, verifiable credibility, and consistency across the internet, across your digital footprint, there are different levers you can pull depending on what type of business you're running. So that's what you want to pay attention to in terms of how you're establishing credibility and how you're being consistently showing up across the internet. A little bit different there. Um, so let's look at some examples of bad versus good. And we're going to look at that first hit, clear, direct answers for this one. Okay. So AI is not going to recommend you if it cannot clearly categorize you, if it can't really understand your business, who, and this is getting back to our positioning, right? Who you help, how you help them, why they're working with you, all of those things. If you have vague positioning, AI is going to read that as noise or even a low credibility signal, and it's not going to feel confident matching you or your content or your product or service as the answer to that question that the user is asking. Okay. So AI models really work on pattern matching as much as possible. So that's where, when I'm saying that matching that specific question to that specific answer, it wants to find patterns throughout, and that it's scoring the internet to find these patterns, right? So if you have vague positioning, it's not only is going to sound weak to a human being. And so this is where sometimes we have some really nice, fun overlap on things that are best practice for AI search visibility are often also best practice for human beings. So if I, as a human, am hitting your website and it's like, I'm not really getting what you're doing, I don't totally understand, I don't totally know if you're going to be able to help me as a human being, maybe a little bit less likely that I'm going to go to the next step in your funnel or reach out to you or inquire or anything like that. Similar AI search is kind of like, I'm not really sure. So I'm just not going to, I'm not going to include you. I'm not going to choose you. So I think a good example of this is like, help people feel their best, right?
Yeah.
No specific person, no specific question, no specific issue. So that's vague positioning, right? And that's what's really going to get you skipped over, not just, branding, but really that positioning. So, and here's a couple of more examples about that, right? So I help people feel their best, right? That's what I just mentioned. A good version of that is I help new moms in whatever your location is, if you have a location based business, resolve breastfeeding pain without giving up nursing. So specific, right? And really, like, one is just, okay, so what? Help people feel their best. Help people feel their best. Sure, I guess. How are you doing that to me? And I think that also gets into a lot of, if you are, especially a service-based business, everybody thinks they're a unique flower, right? My situation is totally different, right? If you're a coach, you've definitely seen this, right? No, but I'm different, right? And a lot of times they're really not,
Yeah.
but they think that they are, right? And so if I'm reading, I help people feel their best, but like, how do you help? But no, but I'm different. My situation is different, right? So the more specific you can get, that's going to enable me to be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I do have pain, but I really don't want to stop nursing, right? Or, I help babies sleep better, right? Who cares? What is that? What? I don't know. I guess, but doesn't everybody want their baby to sleep better? Versus I help new moms, who have just had their second kid to help support better sleep, hygiene or whatever without sleep training. You're hitting on a lot of really specifics there, right? And so then I'm like, oh, yep, that's me raising my hand, right? You want them to see as much of themselves and as much of their situation in your positioning as possible. So the good version isn't just more specific, but it's really answering some of the real questions or real situations that a person is going to type into a search bar or is going to ask in ChatGPT or in Claude or in Perplexity. And that's the real kind of test that you should be measuring some of your positioning against. So could someone type this exact phrase and you'll be there. You'll be the one showing up. So second one, I help entrepreneurs grow their business. Okay. How no. Entrepreneurs and grow their business. Got it. Everybody else online is doing it, right? And it's like even more now that people are using AI for their content, right? Like that
Yeah.
is way too much, right? And you're gonna also get people who are not relevant for you, right? Like I always run it through, like I do not want to have any like bro marketing speak. That is something that I really consciously try to avoid because I don't want to work with the type of people who identify with that bro marketing, all of the like fast get rich stuff that we're seeing on TikTok and everything, right? How to make $1 million with AI in 15 minutes, right? That is not the language that I use because that's not the language that connects with my ideal customer, right? Those are some of the most overused, statements or qualifiers on the internet right now. There's no differentiation there. Everyone who's using that is their positioning sounds exactly like everyone else's, right?
Mhm.
So getting more specific, I help mid six figure service-based businesses fix their operations that break when the founder is the bottleneck, right? So specific, right? Because it's like, oh my God, I am the bottleneck. I am a founder. I am the bottleneck in my business. Like I am that. It's just they're seeing themselves a lot more in that statement because don't forget, AI is also taking everything that it knows about that user to be able to tailor the most specific result to them, right? So if I'm using AI in my business, it already knows a lot about me, right? It knows I'm a founder. It knows I tend to be a bottleneck in my business.
Yeah.
It knows I'm really hitting a ceiling at mid six figures. It knows all of those things. So that's helping to signal to AI, those are the people you work with. And then product based quality products for your home. Okay. Unless you're Martha Stewart, that is way too vague, right? Non toxic cookware for parents replacing Teflon or plastic or whatever in their kitchen, right? And so now we can get even more specific. You're actually naming a brand or a product or an ingredient that they want to replace because it's really likely that they would name that specifically in their question, in their search query with AI. So you're not just being specific there, you're actually naming something that they are trying to get rid of.
Love it. So good. And like
So
you said, I think
one
it's like when you think about this from a human perspective too, like it's so easy to see that. It's like that's true of humans. Like if I know someone really well and I know that's what they're looking for, I'm gonna like give them a recommendation of something else that I know. I'm not gonna be like, well, I saw this one thing about, someone making other people feel better. I mean, of course, that's not how we're gonna do it. So I feel like sometimes it's so like AI is so tough or like so different or so not human. And I think this is actually like a very human way to look at it. Mhm.
Yeah, it's search has always been about, and even traditional search, Google, Bing, whatever, any search engine, it always wants to give the most relevant answer to the user. It
Yeah.
always wants to answer their question the best possible because they want that person to keep using that search tool, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm searching for something, that's why people really stopped using Bing, right? Because then it was giving people answers that were like not relevant to their actual question that they were typing in. AI is trying to do the same thing, but it's casting a much wider net to decide if it's giving it that best answer back when you ask it a question. So it's looking at the entire internet versus just someone's what all the websites out there, right?
And it has so
Um,
much more context.
and it has so much more context. Exactly. So, one thing, if we want to throw it in the chat really quick, like which of those examples sounds more like what your current Instagram bio looks like, right? Or your hero on your website, on your homepage, right? Which one is more similar? Do you have a bad or do you have a good? How
Hmm.
specific are you, right? How tight is that positioning? And one thing I just want to kind of like, I think this is always a big thing when we're talking about niching, right? People are like, okay, but like I need to make money in my business. So I really don't want to niche because then less people will buy from me. And again, this is getting back to our branding, back to our positioning. But one thing that I always say is like, you want to come up for something that's very specific with your in your AI search results. You want your positioning to be super specific, but that doesn't mean you can't help who comes in the door, right? Comes in the door
Hmm.
as just like an analogy for a brick and mortar, right? But so if someone reaches out to me and they're not my exact ICP, they're not my exact fit, I can still decide in that moment if I want to work with them, right? But it's really important for you to get super clear and super specific and niche down in your positioning, that because that's really the only way that AI is going to have enough of that context and feel really confident that you are the specific right answer to the question that person's asking. So if you're just very general and generic, AI is not going to feel like you are the best answer. And so it's not going to include you in the results. And so that's just something really, really important to challenge you with if you refuse to niche down.
So good. Mhm.
All right. So this is something that I know for a lot of us in Lacey's group, like we're solopreneurs or we have very, very small teams, right? We're founders, we're trying to grow. And this is something that I want everybody to not freak out about, but showing up in AI search results doesn't mean a bunch of content, right? I don't want you thinking, okay, I have to put up so much more content with this tight, good positioning, right? It's really not. It's about refining the content that you already have so that it answers that question as fast as possible, ideally in the first two sentences. Because AI, when we're talking about all search engines want to give the most relevant and accurate answer to that question that someone's asking in the search box, AI has another lever. It wants to give that answer as fast as possible, as
Hmm.
quickly as possible. So most AI models are going to process a page top to bottom, and they're going to read it just like an impatient user would, right? So if we know bullets, headers, underlining, things that make a page more skimmable because we know people have short attention spans. Think about AI as also having a short attention span because it wants to give them that result as fast as possible. So it's going to weight heavier what is earlier in the page versus what's further down the page. So if it cannot figure it out in the first few paragraphs of that page, it might just be like, nope, okay, goodbye. Like if the answer to that question it's trying to find is buried down at the bottom of your page, it's already going to decide, nope, this is not relevant. This is not it. And it's going to move on. So this is something that's really important. And it's another kind of, this is important for a human being who's reading
Yeah.
and for AI, right? We see this a lot, with cutesy copywriting, right? Like if you are, being really cutesy in your headers and or like it's a joke, like I always give this example of like when I was in college and I had a digital camera. And so every night after we went out in Tallahassee, I would upload those pictures that I took on my
Oh
digital
yeah.
camera and I would name the album like like a lyric from a song. Okay. They're still on my Facebook, so don't worry. You guys can go see it for friends. But in terms of AI search, horrible, horrible, right? Because AI is like, I don't understand. AI does not have a sense of humor. AI, and this is why a lot of times people complain that content by AI is so bad, right? It's not
Yeah.
creative. It's not, think of your writing everywhere, not just on your website, as that, right? It is like the most literal person you've ever had a conversation with, right? So you want your headers, you want your content to answer specifically and answer it fast. Okay.
Allison said, I
So
have work to do. And Christy said, I'm so relieved that the best strategy is just be clear
it's
positioning.
just easy,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
Right.
not that serious, right? It's not that
Yeah.
serious. And you can, that's not to say your brand doesn't have a personality,
Yeah.
especially for anybody who, you're the business owner is really like the face of the brand. I'm not saying you need to just be like, like not ever be funny, but you just don't want to get clever with your writing because it's not going to understand it, right? So there are other ways to show the personality of your brand, right? In the type of content that you're creating, in your visuals, in your branding, right? In videos, all of that. Like you can still show your personality, but the actual words on the page, like someone dumb like your grandma should be able to go and get it and understand it, right? Like that's what's important there. So if we're looking at our good versus bad or bad versus good in our answer for this is what we'd call answer first content, right? Our bad example, it's buried. At such and such business, we spent over a decade building relationships with our community and believe every client deserves a personalized experience. Why do I care? I don't care. I don't give a shit. Like I do not care, right? Because this is also like, as people, we're selfish, right? We are
Yeah.
self-centered. Like I don't care. I want you to know, like, how are you going to help me? How are you going to fix my problem? What am I going to get, right? That value first piece. So when we're looking at our good example, it's answer first. So this service typically costs this much. It takes this much time. Here's how you know how much it's going to cost, or like, here's what that looks like, right? And pricing is important here. So any of you that are doing custom scopes, custom proposals, that's fine, but you really need to have
Mm.
at a minimum starting at or a price range. You really do. Because that is a credibility and a trust signal for AI, but also for people, right? If you've heard about like you really want your digital footprint to scare away people who are not a good fit. Like, why do I want to spend time talking to a lead who's a horrible fit, right? I would much rather not waste that time talking to them and dealing with them, right? So AI is going to work the same way. You want to have all that information up front so that they're like, "Oh, that's me. That makes sense. That's in my budget. I can do that," right? You want that up front so that AI is seeing it, it knows you're legit, it can see the pricing. Because again, what if I'm typing I need a copywriter and my budget is blah, right? If you don't have any pricing, you're probably not going to show up in that AI search result
I think
because
that's the
AI
point,
doesn't know.
right? Like it's almost like people think, well, I have a better chance of getting in front of them if I don't put that because then they won't be like turned away by it or turned off from it. But one,
Mhm.
AI is not going to pull it if someone's asking for those specifics. And two, pardon me, like Sam said, like the idea that like best practice is to attract people that are turned off by your price is crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's not a
Yeah.
best practice at all.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
practice I think got started by a lot of the like bro marketer shit, like Sam was saying earlier, where they're like, oh, just force someone to get on a phone and then you can get them like blah blah blah. Right. It's
Right.
really not like a best human practice overall.
Yeah. And for any of you who are like worried about seeming, whenever it comes to sales, like seeming sleazy or like selling makes you like really like clench up and you don't want to feel like sleazy or anything like that. Like this solves that
A
problem,
ton.
right? It really does because you're just like, this is how much it costs. Take it or leave it. Like it's fine. I know what I have. Take it or leave it, right? Which, it goes into a lot of like mindset work and things like that, which obviously we're not going to talk about, but Lacey talks about a lot. But yeah, so like for any of you where selling really makes you feel uncomfortable, like this really helps that situation because it's there for them already. They'll already know what the pricing
Mhm.
is. So let's do our bad versus good, right? So give me a one if your website is this, right? So general, buried information, nothing specific. And then give me a two if you are specific, you're giving that information, you're giving it quick, right? It is at the top of the page. And when I say top of the page, when I'm talking about answer first content, I'm talking about your homepage, I'm talking about your services page, I'm talking about a blog post, like a answer first blog post is really like, here's the question, it's like what is it, TLDR, just bloop right at there, and then you can give them more information. Obviously you can explain it more, you can do more, right? But AI needs a TLDR. It needs that right there in its face as soon as possible.
I actually think that's one of the reasons that we have shown up in AI search at a little life is because just accidentally, really, is we do those community Q&As where people on the wait list can submit a question. And so we have so many index
Yeah.
questions of like a true question and an exact answer.
Yeah.
And I do think that's made like a really big difference. Mhm.
Yeah, that's definitely, there's a few different like ways that you can integrate that into your content, but FAQs, how you're showing that question and direct answer in your content on your website or creating content around those specific questions. All there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it, but all of that is helping to show AI the answer as fast, as specifically and as fast as possible. So really, if you don't know what your first five main questions someone is asking before buying
Mhm.
from you, you should really get clear on what that is. Pay attention to what questions people are asking on discovery calls, what questions they're asking when they email you because they're not really sure. And you should create content around those very specific questions and answer them because that is going to, number one, people have that question, right? So again, like, why would you want them to have to ask you that question? You want it out there so that they can see it, so that they can really feel like, oh, Sam gets it. Like she totally understands what I'm going through because she's already answering this question for me, right? So we're building trust there versus them having to contact you and then you have to answer. And that, yes, it gets a conversation going, but you can skip a lot of that and build that trust or make them realize, oh, this is not a good fit and then not waste your time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
All right.
good.
So here's our other kind of items that are going to hit on AI search results. And we're not going to really, we don't have time to go into them today, but your content at scale, when you're thinking about your content, capital C, on the capital I, internet, right? Your whole digital footprint, right? You want on your website a handful of answer first pages, right? So those could be blog posts, those could be specific service or product pages. And each one is answering a real question. It's giving that answer right at the beginning. It's getting specific. It's not getting cutesy. Trust, trust signals. Okay. That is proof that AI, that you exist, that you're a real operating company, right? And this is similar to if you've done any SEO work, off page SEO. So this is reviews, directory profiles. If you have like a industry specific directory or listing. This is mentions on like Reddit threads, on Instagram, all of that, guest posting, being a guest on people's podcasts, all of those are trust signals off of your site. And it makes AI much more comfortable recommending you, right? So think of those as like digital referrals for AI search to choose you. And then, and trust signals really in particular are different depending on if you're running a local business or, if you're running a local business, your Google business profile is going to be super important. Listings, local directory listings, that's going to be really important. A coach, if you have like no storefront, you have none of that. This is going to be testimonials, media mentions, guest blogging, podcast guests, all of those kind of things. And then technical readiness, this is making sure AI can actually read and see and we call it crawl your website and understand what is on there. Okay. And this is one of our points where we overlap with SEO a little bit because if you have a website that is slow to load and is bad on mobile, you really get dinged for that by Google in SEO. And it's kind of similar to a certain extent in AI search results. So if your website is loading in longer than 1 second, like get out of here. You got to redo that shit. That's how fast your website really needs to be loading, like under 1 second. And it should feel really good on mobile. So if things are too small or I can't click a button or things like that, like it arguably for most of you, and you can look at your Google Analytics on your website, which is free if you don't have it set up, but arguably over 50% all the way to maybe 90, 95% of your website traffic is probably mobile, especially if you do a lot of your visibility work on Instagram. Mobile, all going to be mobile. So that's something that's really important.
Megan said like this is so different from the open loop intro we were taught pre-AI.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Like it's really about
Like actually
everything,
giving them
all
the answer,
like,
not like everything's
yeah.
behind this hidden thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
totally.
if you think about it, like I think, and obviously with marketing and everything online, like it's cyclical to a certain extent, right? I think so many people were just burned by that,
Yeah.
and if you've been hearing about like we have a real like we need trust, right? There's a real lack of trust. And that's why we're seeing like in-person groups or higher touch
Yeah.
services and things like that performing better. Like it's cyclical, right? Um, but again, like it's a lot harder to not trust someone if they're like, here's what I'm about, like take it or leave it, right? Like that in and of itself builds trust really quickly and effectively, right? So like I know, so I do that as a human being. I know that if I get on a phone call with a person or I'm doing a workshop like this, I build trust really quickly because it's very like, this is what it's about, take it or leave it, right? And so
Yeah.
it's almost like translating that to just your content, your digital footprint across the board, because it's kind of hard to be like, oh, okay, yeah. So like they're really putting out there what it's all about. So like they're just a lot less likely to like second guess you, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then again, some of these, especially around trust signals and technical readiness and some of your content, how you're doing it, how you're implementing it is a little bit different based on if you're a local brick and mortar or if you're an online service provider or if you're, your e-commerce. Some of those specific things are going to be a little bit different, but at its core, what we've been talking about today is the same across any type of business. Um, so really, I would recommend, we've seen our bad and our good examples and everything, and it's all about your content and being super upfront and quick and specific in your content, right? So if you want, you can scan the QR code here, and that's going to give you a free AI search visibility audit. It takes about 10 minutes. And that's really going to walk you through what you should be looking for. It's going to go into a bit more detail beyond what we talked about today. And it'll show you where you kind of stand across these four categories. And then, so yeah, I have that free audit. I do also have an AI search visibility workshop. Look at that. So specific, so upfront. It's $97. It's recorded at 60 minutes. It walks you through deeper into this, deeper into how AI search works, how you can fix things. You have a workbook that's more specific for local businesses or online businesses or e-commerce businesses. And then also you do have a prompt library that helps you to implement everything that's in the workshop. So you can take a look at that, or if you download the audit, you'll get information about that as well. Um, Questions?
I love it. So good. I think so helpful to just see like so much of it is easier than it seems, and so much of it comes back to that clarity. And again, I think it can be hard for online businesses because in some ways, then like social almost is built to not have questions answered that clearly and to kind of like dance around it. And so there's a lot of pieces you have to have here, but it just kind of is the game now. Like I think it just is part of it. And you kind of have to toe the line between all of it. Um, and having really like easy ways to do this makes sense. But at the end of the day, most of it comes back to like, is it clear what you do and how you help? And even if you're doing a 6-second reel, that's like whatever, not answering one specific question, like it does still matter there as much as it does here. But like it is all a lot, but it again, it just is the game. So I feel like Sam was kind of saying earlier, we can be like, oh, I just can't with this. Or we can be like, okay, this is how it is now. Like, how do I lean into that? Because if when people talk about like passive stuff, to me, like this is actually one of those things. Like if AI is truly referring you without
Yeah.
you having to do it, like that actually is a really passive form of marketing.
Yeah, and I think also if you're just keeping, when it comes to showing up in AI search, and this is the difference for me with SEO, right? Because a lot of times there are SEO things, technical SEO things that you should hire someone who knows what they're doing to fix for you. And it's a big lift. And that's how
Yeah.
you really start showing up in like the first page of Google, right? But with AI search, there's some like core best practices that you can just go and update your existing content. So you don't even need to create new content. And it's going to pull that fresh every time someone's
Yeah.
asking, typing that question into the search bar, right? And then it's just best practices to be aware of moving forward, right? So you're creating content now. We create content for Instagram, for Threads, for, Substack, for all these different places now, right? For our email, whatever. But if you're keeping in mind this like core how I should be communicating information, and you're just doing that while you just create the normal content that you already are creating, just that will help and will get you to
Mhm.
start showing up. So like most clients that I've seen and that I've been working with, like we didn't have to go through their website and like do work to 1,000 pages or anything like that. It was just, okay, let's go through, let's look. Okay, these are our top. Look at your pages that get the most traffic and start with those pages, right?
Mhm,
um
mhm.
Get your Google Search Console, like set up your Instagram, set up your social media, hook that into your Google Search Console, and just be looking at, you can get some insights into where am I showing up in terms of search. When someone's typing something in search, am I showing up, right? Because if you're not showing up for what you want to be showing up in, if you're showing up for something that's completely irrelevant, like that's a problem. You don't want to be showing up in those search results.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's almost permission to like do less,
Yes.
but do it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
well.
Do it well. Totally. I
Yeah.
think that is totally the game right now. Thank you for being
Yeah.
here. I appreciate you so much. This
Yeah.
was so good and so helpful. If you guys have more questions, reach out to Sam. Obviously you can use this, but she is very good at being an open book. You can DM her.
Yep.
But
Sam dot
yeah,
DiNicola
yeah. It's linked in my
on
stories. We'll
Instagram. Yeah.
Um, when we jump off, Sam, if you could put the code in the or
Yeah.
like the link in the show notes to this too, just in case somebody missed the QR code. And
Yeah.
I appreciate you. This was wonderful. Thank you guys. I hope you have
Yeah.
a good week.
Bye.
Bye.